Hello, 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 and welcome to Stories from the Other Side. This is myself, Juanita Shanks, CEO and founder of FailSafe-ERA, and I have here today joining me Mr. Spencer Antoine Carey, aka Antoine, college boy,
College boy.
faded, all of the above.
Right.
Welcome, 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 Antoine.
Thank you so much for having me, Mom.
I
Miss
am so,
Juanita.
and oh yes, AKA Ma.
Yeah.
But that's how we are in FailSafe. We become
Right.
a family, and Antoine has been with us for quite a long time. How long
Right.
has it been?
I want to say you and I met in 2016.
That's
Yeah,
what I thought.
2016.
Yeah,
Correct.
you were speaking at an
Right.
event for the Department of Corrections.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
when I heard you speak, I'm like, wow, he stands for everything that we have and that we do. And I was so impressed. And I was like, and you live in our area. How
Right.
did I miss you? You live in our area doing all of these great things. So I am just so pleased that you are able to join us today. But I know that today is also a special day.
Correct. Today, February 24th, makes 11 years from my release from the Department of Corrections.
Wow.
Yes, ma'am.
How does that feel?
Um, Kind of unreal.
Yeah.
Mainly that so much time has elapsed.
Yeah.
I was always spoke of to look back to 12 years ago. Each year when this day comes around, I'm reminded of a gentleman I spoke with, and he explained to me to look not to the day that I was released, but
Gotcha.
a year prior to my release. And just looking back there kind of grounds me and brings things back into focus. But to know that so far removed that actually did take place, and to be on the other side of that now is unreal.
Ooh, I bet it is. But okay, let's talk about, is it 11 years or what is
So
it?
it is 11 years from the date that I was released, which was February 24th of 14.
Got it.
I had the unfortunate luxury of returning back to incarceration since that time, so it's not quite 11 years. Nonetheless, I'm still grateful for this day, and I'm grateful for those incarcerations as well.
Grateful for incarceration. Who says that?
So, unlike others, and even with FailSafe, we combat recidivism. We don't necessarily combat incarceration.
Got it. You're right.
I am one, having been on both sides of that fence, know all too well that discipline and correction is required. I'm blessed to have a second chance, and I'm blessed to be able to say that I've changed, but change comes by way of correction. I speak, oftentimes I've spoken to you about, a law created heaven and hell. So there are those that supposed to be there, not for public safety. Not everybody is supposed to be in the communities with us, and sometimes it does require that incarceration in order to remove yourself or detach away from things that may perpetuate whatever that you're into. And it gave me time to reflect. And they always say you see the bigger picture when you're out of the picture. You're on the sidelines. You see every missed pass,
so that was my
every
next
opportunity.
question.
Right. So I'm thankful for my time on the sideline.
Okay. So that is actually my next question is, did you always feel that way? Or where do you feel that what was that moment where you started you were able to reflect and say, okay, I did this, I deserve it.
So, let me see here. I would say, speaking for Antoine himself, and only Antoine, I knew that any time that I was incarcerated, I was in fact guilty of whatever I was charged with.
Okay.
I may not have been in agreement with the sentence that was handed down, but I also understood my role in it, and I feel accountability is a big part.
Excellent. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about what were your charges?
So my very first incarceration was possession with intent to distribute cocaine.
Okay.
Uh, I followed up that when graduated to unlawful discharge of a firearm, possession of a firearm by a felon, use of a firearm, and the commission of a felony, alongside with a few distributions of cocaine sprinkled in.
Guilty.
Guilty. Absolutely guilty.
Wow. So as you were walking through this, was it just Antoine, or was it Antoine and you had some kids? You know, how did that play out? You have a family, right?
Yes, so I have a son and a daughter. My daughter was actually born, actually both of my kids were born right around the time where I was actually facing charges. So even though I was blessed to be home to see both of them be born, I left both of them a few months after. My son, I was incarcerated right after his birth, maybe 3 days afterwards. My daughter, which she's went through all of my incarcerations with me, but I did leave 2 kids behind each time.
And that's a challenge, you know, trying to help them to understand what decisions you made and how it impacted them, right?
Correct. And also going back to the incarceration piece, I don't know that I was the greatest example for them at that time.
Okay.
So if I would have continued on being the father being the man that I was to Antoine, then it definitely would have did them a disservice had I been there anyway.
Oh, God, I understand that. And you know, and of course, parenting, there's no book that comes along with
Correct.
it. So it's hard. It's trial and error and so on and so forth. Some are a little bit different or difficult than others in the decisions that we make. But let me ask you this. Let me do a rewind here. When you were incarcerated or while you were incarcerated, I remember you sharing at some point about your charges. Now, you were sentenced to many more years than you served, right?
Correct. My last, can't say my last incarceration, but the incarceration where I actually went to prison was for attempt murder charges, and I was blessed to be able to, by way of habeas corpus, I was able to give 8 years of that 12-year sentence back, and that is what allowed me to be released early. Upon my habeas corpus being granted, I still wasn't released that day. I still had roughly 20-some months to do. I was at Haynesville Correctional Center at the time that this habeas corpus was granted. And for the many men that are in prison now that are still fighting for their freedom, these men frequent the law library. You know, a lot of them held my hand, even explaining to me how to search up certain codes and different things in the law books. So these guys was aware that mine had been granted, which is bittersweet, of course, you know, because they are still fighting for the exact same thing. But it also gave me time to walk the yard with these guys and for these guys to pour into me and for them to explain to me how the recidivism rate, those that go home and return, and how I kind of carried them on my back going home, because they do not grant a lot of these habeas corpus. They do not give post-conviction relief, and the fact that you are one to receive this, how much more important it is for you to go home and to be an example, because, you know, the lack thereof would do a detriment to the cases that they are still trying to push through.
So for our viewers, explain the habeas corpus.
A habeas corpus is post-conviction relief that is offered to individuals that have been wronged some type of way through their prosecution and conviction. I filed on the grounds of ineffective assistance of counsel. Little backstory, I did not take a plea to those charges. We actually had a trial, and in the middle of trial, my lawyer leaned over to me. He tells me how, you know, the judge is not going for this, and we kind of need to abandon ship now in order to save face. We took a recess. He spoke with the prosecutor. They come back in, and now we're just going to plead guilty to these charges. They had amended one of the charges, which was a malicious shooting within a building. They amended that to unlawful discharge of a firearm within a building. it was done all quickly. I went ahead, I pled guilty to all of those charges. Got back to the jail because they did not sentence me that day.
Yeah.
They just accepted my plea. And from there, I started researching more on the charges that I had. Another one of the charges that I was charged with was use of a firearm in the commission of a felony, which after searching the law books, I was able to uncover that was only for specific felonies. The specific felony being a malicious shooting, which was amended from malicious to now unlawful.
Got it.
I sent this information to my lawyer. I had documented copies of the letters that I sent to him, and I had the responses that he responded to me stating that he acknowledged what I had found, it did have merit, and that he would present it to the judge. By the time we go to court, he still was yet to present this to the judge. It was me that actually spoke up in court and addressed this. The judge agreed and dismissed the use of a firearm in the commission of a felony because it was not tied to that malicious shooting. There was another issue that I also presented in the same correspondence with my lawyer stating how there was another charge that should have been dismissed as well, and that was, let me get this right now. The attempt second-degree murder charge was reduced to an unlawful shooting. It was the malicious shooting in a building that the judge just said, like, now is not the time to address this. And it was 8 years that he gave me for that specific charge. Again, had my lawyer had presented this prior to going to court,
Yes,
they would have caught it and they would have removed that. So my counsel, Michael Moorchower, Magic Mike, was found to be ineffective in that he did not present this argument and that I suffered a consequence or a prejudice due to that.
So how did you know to do this? What made you go to the law library just by having conversations with all the other inmates, or you just knew something was not right and you wanted to research it?
Again, going back, any time that I've been charged with something, I've known what I was in fact guilty of. I knew that I wasn't guilty of trying to kill anybody because I know that it requires intent. Intent is a prerequisite for that, and I did not have that intent. And again, for anybody that has been incarcerated, you don't want anything more than your freedom.
I know that's right, but not everybody knows to go to that library and look to see whether or not my lawyer or that I was properly represented and I did get exactly what I'm supposed to get. You just don't know that. Why did you pursue that? It's just something you thought to do? Yeah. Or is that the reason why you have the name College Boy?
So I would tie into the college boy thing.
Yeah.
Most would say that I'm a sharp young man, and it was so prominent.
Yeah.
Being up against the charges alone would have enough to make you read up on it. You go to the doctor right now, doctor diagnose you with something.
You want to
didn't
research
Google
it.
and absolutely. So this was my disease. This was my terminal illness that I was being sentenced to or diagnosed with, and and you have plenty of free time, for those that haven't been to saluted jail, anything to get out the pod and actually get out there. So that definitely, I went to the law library. As I started reading more, I was able to understand, even to offer assistance to other guys in their cases that they was fighting at the same time. So, some people sit at the poker table all day. Some dudes work out all day. I was in the law library.
So, and which is awesome. Many people need to look at how they're spending their time.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
What is it that I'm going to get from this?
Right.
And if that means go sit in the law library just to learn something, maybe how to even help somebody else.
That's where I'm at.
Then, so that is a great thing. Now, let me ask you this. So your upbringing, you come from a great upbringing.
Right. I come from a very blessed family.
Yeah.
My family is very blessed, and I use the word blessed because I can look at my grandparents, and my grandparents didn't have a lot. So in my life, it was my mother and my father that I seen them like establish themselves and build houses, and you know, it happened in a generation right there before me, so I was able to witness that. I had very successful siblings, and
So what happened? What do you think happened that caused you to make this decision?
so the difference between me and my siblings is, of course, I am the only male. I still can't pinpoint exactly why young black men, and I say young black men, you know, I'm biased. I do come from that. Why we are drawn to things, even if these are not things that we come from. I grew up in, you know, we'll say Tappahannock, Virginia, we're Center Cross, Virginia. I did not grow up in the city, no projects, not a lot of crime, and yet that was cool. You know, I even remember my very first charges, and you know, it's like you get to a jail and the newspaper that came out, so guys in the jail know who you are, they know what you're charged with, and to even wear that as a badge of honor throughout the jail, that you have these serious charges whole time, like.
And
that's not what
good.
you want. Yeah,
No.
this that's not what you want.
No, but that's what people look for.
Right.
Right? It's a badge of honor.
Yeah.
So how do we fix this for our youth coming up today? That's not a good thing to have that badge of honor.
So only speaking for me, I pray to change the narrative. You know, me as a simple barber, but I know like barbers always was cool. You know, they always dressed cool. They always had nice hairstyles. You know, the work environment is cool. And to trying to tap into something to make an occupation something just as appealing as being on the other side of the law.
Yeah, so just really reaching back out to them.
Right.
So let me ask you, how did you transition back out? How did you become so successful? And I want to talk about all the success that you have going on, but what do you feel contributed to your success?
First and foremost, my answer is always the same. It's like blessings.
Yeah.
I know to be true now that if you surround yourself with good people, like good stuff happen to you.
Yes.
Because good stuff is happening in their life.
Yes.
I was blessed to, again, I've always had a strong support system. So even when I was released, I knew that I had those that was actually awaiting my return. And I had those that was able to hold me up while I got my feet up underneath me, which is a luxury that a lot of people are not afforded.
But when I met you, you were speaking at a Virginia Department of Corrections event, sitting at the same seat with the director, Harold Clark, right?
That was Harold Clark.
You were there speaking to us. You were going in there speaking to other inmates. So you were already, when you transitioned, how long had you been out then?
At that time, maybe 2 years.
Okay, so maybe 2 years. And then when I met you, you were already doing some barbering.
Yes.
Right? So why did you need us?
So and that was the second part I was gonna say. So I was blessed to had got my barber's license while I was incarcerated. Came home and did natural gas work. Didn't even go straight into barbering. Was doing natural gas work in Maryland, and like that's hard work.
Yeah.
That's, you know, best shape of my life. I can do push-ups, pull-ups all day, but that shovel is different.
Using different types of muscles,
that
right?
shovel is different. So I was blessed to have the barber's license, and I transitioned into a barbershop, Kingdom Cuts, which is downtown Fredericksburg. I was there for maybe 8 months. Don't do well with glass ceilings, so just that I was able to see what it looked like to be an owner, I wanted that. Okay. And there was nothing keeping me from that.
Hungry for that.
So I did open up Fade & Company Barber Shop in 2016. Okay. I was blessed to do a free haircuts at Spotsylvania Town Center with DTLR one year. From there, I was contacted by Mrs. Debbie Howard, which was the workforce development officer at Haynesville at the time, and she was doing a pilot program where first time I've ever heard of inmates that had been released being allowed to come back in to speak to the inmates. So unheard of for me because I was still trying to get back into DOC just to visit some friends of mine, relatives that were still incarcerated, but I was unable to do that due to me hadn't been released. She invited me down there to speak, and it actually was five of us that spoke that day.
So hold that thought. You can come speak, but you can't come visit. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I heard that.
Right. But I was invited down. It was five of us that spoke, but just so happened that day Freelance Star was there to report the story. They spoke with me afterwards. Again, same thing with you. And you're in Fredericksburg. All right, we're gonna stop by and see you.
Yeah.
They showed up maybe 2 days later. Reporter, photographer. I've never been interviewed. I had a photographer come, and maybe a few weeks later, Sunday paper. There I am. From there, that's when I was contacted again to speak at the meeting where I seen you at. And it was a blessing, again, to meet Miss Juanita, the whole FailSafe family. And I mean, you remember as well. But we had conversations. And, I still indulging in marijuana at the time. And you explained to me how, we can't get behind you to push you knowing that, you're not 100% correct. And I told you that day at breakfast,
Yes.
I say, I can't tell you today.
Yes, you did.
I can't tell you today. But if you
that.
give me some time, like I am gonna get in position. And from there, I would say Miss Juanita, you and the FailSafe family has picked me up and carried me the rest of the way.
But we didn't have to do too much lifting because you were doing so great on your own. So you have got the Faded and Company Barbershop.
Yes, ma'am.
Faded and Company
Barber Academy.
So let me not try to tell you. You going to tell us.
So I am the proud owner of Faded and Company Barbershop, which opened in 2016. Also, Faded and Company Barber Academy, which opened in 2020, and that was birthed out of the idea for me wanting to train those that I wanted to employ. And newly established, 2024, we have the Faded Foundation.
Yes.
Yes.
That's success. That's what we like to see and we like to hear. So you got the barbershop, the academy, and now you have your own foundation. What does this foundation stand for? What's the purpose for your foundation?
Okay, so the Faded Foundation is facing adversity through development, education, and dedication. Again, I've been blessed to create an environment that is conducive to success for others. By way of a barber license. My hope is to make this same opportunity that I had as accessible and affordable to as many others as I can. I am biased, so ideally I do want to help those that have been affected by the same things that I have been affected, and that is incarceration. I'd go a step further to say, nor does this only pertain to those that themselves have been incarcerated, because we know that incarceration affects more than just the inmate. Of course, the Faded Foundation, which is facing adversity through development being the mental, like you have to have your mentality straight in order to pursue anything that you want, anything in life. Then the education piece, which is that would lead someone to licensure with their barber's license. I'm a product of the Haynesville Barber Program, which at Haynesville has no one has taken the test from the Haynesville Barber Program that has not got their license. We know that this is proven that it has reduced the recidivism rate. Those that, in spite of, once you've dealt with all of your other issues, homelessness, substance abuse, mental health, you still need to be self-sustaining. And you're able to do that by way of a barber's license. You could be an independent contractor. You no longer have those barriers to employment that others face with filling out an application, and you become your own business. And lastly, dedicating to pouring into the community in which lent that hand to you, and that is the community engagement piece that I stress so much as well. I wrote a book, From Whom Much Is Given,
yes.
and that book speaks on how there are certain things that are obligatory upon you once you've received certain successes.
Okay, and not only did you write a book, we have a documentary. That's right?
The documentary Fade in Full, the story of Antoine Carey, was also today's anniversary. We debuted the documentary in the Marquee Cinemas 5 years to the date of my release, which is 6 years to date today.
Wow, you have done so much. I am so proud of you. It's
Thank
like
you,
I'm
Mom.
saying, and you're right, I'm saying congratulations.
Thank
You're
you.
doing great. I'm so proud of you to
Thank you,
say
Mom.
son. Because you are doing some really, really good stuff where you at one point wreaked havoc. Now you're making an impact in a good way, and you go to the schools. You're talking to the youth at the schools. You're working in the FailSafe youth program. So you're pouring back into these youth. What do you tell them?
Depending on, for one, I'm big on building relationships.
Yeah.
And once you build a rapport, because like risk assessment, not everybody is in need of the same resources nor the same message. Ideally, I just want the youth to know and understand, but you won't always be young.
Yeah.
And the decisions that you are making now can ultimately be the same reason that prevents you from ever getting to where you want to be.
Absolutely.
I have a twin sister, and my twin sister, very established. I'm so proud of her. And we was born together. I'm proud of all of my sisters, but my twin sister, Tiffany, she's only beat me here by 10 minutes.
Oh, my goodness.
But she takes trips to places in the world I don't know where it's at on the map.
Wow.
And even though we had the same beginning, I know that it wasn't later in life when, she kind of pulled away. It was back in our youth. It was back when I was making those decisions and she was doing the things that she's supposed to be doing. And I know for myself, I can see that separation.
Wow.
Young men, the youth period, have enough obstacles, or they say life be lifing, but they have plenty that they have to navigate through anyway. The last thing you want to do is to do anything that's going to take away from your success later on in life.
So our last broadcast, our last podcast, we had Isaiah Landry.
Mr. Landry.
Yes. So Isaiah Landry was one of our scholarship recipients. He's also an agent of change, just like you.
Right.
So Isaiah Landry came to us through you, right? He's one of your...
He's one of my success stories.
Yeah.
Mr. Landry is they say a tree by its fruit. Mr. Landry is the fruit of this tree.
Mm-hmm. He's doing great.
Awesome.
Great. You have so many. How many barbers do you have now?
Currently, I have 7 barbers that are actually cutting in the shop.
Okay.
By way of the Barber Academy, we have graduated. We just had our 3rd graduation. We have, I wish I had the exact numbers. We're in our 3rd graduate. We just recently had our 3rd graduation. We have graduated 4 master barbers. The rest of them were barber ones. Mrs. Tia Clark, which is my first enrolled student at Fade in the Company Barber Academy. She's went on to not only be a master barber, but a master barber instructor, and has taught every class following her class.
Awesome. You should be proud of yourself and all that you are accomplishing, that you have accomplished, and especially from where you were coming from. Not necessarily from childhood, because it sounds like you had a great childhood.
I did.
But it was when you made that turn to make the decisions that you made that you now are doing so much now to make amends for all of that. And I definitely am proud to say that you are part of the FailSafe team.
FailSafe family.
FailSafe family, you got that right. Because you are doing so many great things, You were not one of our most difficult clients. But I remember the time you had to go back. That was a hard thing for me. That was hard, because it didn't have to happen. And what I liked about what you said, something you said was you didn't want to disappoint. You didn't want to disappoint anybody, but you didn't want to disappoint us. Because, when we poured so much into you and then you turn, and this is for everybody.
Right.
You pour so much into somebody and then it's like, did it mean anything? Did it matter?
The hardest part of of that last incarceration was I have had exposure at that time.
Yeah.
And, whatever inspiration or motivation that I was able to give, I think sometimes people they already see their self in you.
Yeah.
And they kind of align their motivation and hope with your success.
You're right.
So any failure on my part,
It's like failure on our part.
right?
Yeah.
Whole time I still wanted I still wanted my failure to also ground me and to resonate with others because I am still you. And they say it's not alcoholism, it's alcoholism. I still have that record in spite of whatever successes, and we seen that firsthand with that last incarceration. In spite of all the work that's being done on paper, I still had these 14 felony convictions. So when it's time to go in front of a judge, that's who they see, and that's who they sentenced. But I used that, and the book was written while I was incarcerated this last time, ideally because I did want to get back to this work, even though I had had a mishap and resulted in another incarceration. Like, I did want to get back to this work, and I wanted to be the one that tell my story as opposed to someone else telling it.
Yeah, you never gave up.
Right. But also I know and understand you need to establish yourself amongst good people. To know that this is, I wasn't just something I was just trying to run. This is who I am. But for that incarceration, I am still very much a returning citizen.
Yeah, when you said that, it reminded me of the person who was your coach that worked with you. And when initially I thought about, is this the right coach? This is somebody, it's a security police officer.
Yeah, they don't bother me.
Yeah, but he was your first coach out.
Right.
And so, which was really good, Bruce Thomas.
Bruce Thomas.
Yeah.
I was trying to call it out. I was seeing Mr. Thomas, but yeah, Mr. Bruce Thomas.
Yeah, so that was, I didn't think about it at the time.
Mm-hmm.
All I knew is that this was somebody who was willing.
Right.
So we work with whomever is willing to help our clients to overcome, to become that successful and productive person that we know that they can become. So you have mastered it all. Again, business owner, your own foundation, barbershop, dad, community leader. You're just doing all of these great things. You're the perfect example of what we stand for. I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you. And I thank God again. There's no way back in Haynesville that I could have looked forward and had a plan. There's no way that I could have planned to be where it is that I am now. I'm so grateful to be used. I really feel like I'm just a vessel. I pray that there's more in store for me. Again, I'm surrounded by a group of great people, and you all inspire me. I tell you about being on the board and just sitting there.
Yeah, you serve on our board.
Amongst reputable stand-up individuals, and to have access to those resources, and to have invitations and opportunities that's been afforded me, and I just try to utilize and capitalize on each one of them.
So, what advice would you give to anyone who has either been incarcerated, maybe on their way because they have some charges upcoming? What advice would you give to somebody that is, let me ask you to do this two ways. Somebody that has been incarcerated, still trying to find their way, and somebody who is still living a lifestyle that could potentially be on their way there. Does that make sense?
Okay, so the first part was, what advice would I give to someone who has already been incarcerated
and still struggling a bit?
The advice that I would give to someone who has been incarcerated that is still struggling, I would encourage them not to create any sense of urgency. Given how high the incarceration rate is, there's a lot of new organizations that have formed to like offer the resources that these individuals stand in need of. You don't have to take on so much weight on your own because there are people out there that have been affected now because the incarceration rate has went up. It has impacted a lot more people. And those people are there to aid those that are still impacted or still going through. So the first thing I would encourage them is to utilize those resources. Tap into those things that's already made easy for you, so that you can make it light on yourself. And the second part was
somebody who's out here, because we know people that's out here maybe doing some things.
Okay.
That you might want to say to them, look, let me tell you. What advice would you give them?
The advice that I would give to anybody that's continuously, actively engaged in criminal activity right now, I tell them pick up a law book. Take time and search what it says about the acts that you are committing, so that you are aware of what these consequences entail. I speak to the youth. I tell them, at times, I begin making better decisions when I started making informed decisions. If you really knew that one time that they catch you, that is going to call for this, because it does.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it does. These are not just words on paper. When you go into those courtrooms and you're talking to even the lawyer, your lawyer, your defense lawyer, he's going to charge you, or he's going to give you an invoice. That's going to be equivalent to these charges.
Yeah.
He's going to want $5,000 per felony, and the numbers that they are speaking about are for real. Because anybody that engage in street activity, you look forward to going back to the streets after your incarceration, right? Learn them laws, understand the risks that you are taking, and at that point, if you still choose to take those risks, then you know what to expect, so you can keep your name clean. You don't have to be on the stand telling on nobody or whatnot because you didn't know what those charges entail, but make an informed decision.
Got it. What do you feel, I have two last questions for you, okay? What do you feel is your role as an agent of change?
As an agent of change, my role, I would think, is to be active. We've already been highlighted, so light has been placed on us for having made a change. And one must be cognitive to know that that light is still on you. So now that I have this attention, like I want to continue on in the work that I've been doing. I want to continue knowing that it's required of me now, since I've been given this status, that it's required of me in order to exemplify, what that stands, and to know like others are watching. I never negate how anything that I do can impact someone else, or has, things, a lot of times we, inspire folks and we're not even aware of it. So it's like I would hold that in high regard. I always make myself available. I also charge myself with protecting other good people, because resources are limited, and that's what we deal with in the nonprofit world. Everybody wants to do great work, but you need resources in order to do that, and not everybody that stand in need of these resources are ready to receive them. So, I also charge myself with being a protector of good people from those that may not have the best intentions now.
Good. Yes, I see that in you.
Right.
So here's the last thing. We've talked about a lot. We talked about all of the great things that you're doing, Faded and Company Barber, Faded and Company Academy, your foundation. We talked about that. We talked about the book.
Right.
That people can go out and get your book, To Whom Much Is Given.
From whom much is given.
Say it. What is it?
From whom much is given.
Okay. And they can get it on Amazon.
Available on Amazon and on the Faded and Company website, fadedandcompany.com, by way of the ebook.
All righty. And then we have your documentary.
The documentary is also available, Faded Fade in Full, the story of Antoine Carey, and that's available on YouTube.
Okay, and we'll put all those links out there as
Please.
well. But I just want you, if there's anything that you want the viewers to hear, to know that we have not talked about, is there one thing that you would like for the viewers to hear about Antoine Carey or about what you're doing, how you've made a change, anything that we may have not covered?
I would want the viewers to know that the incarceration rate is 400% greater than what it was 40 years ago. For all those that are incarcerated right now, statistically, 94% of these individuals will return back to our communities. It's imperative that we all pull together in order to make this transition as seamless as possible. Whether it's by way of supporting, FailSafe-ERA, the Faded Foundation, any of these other nonprofits, whether it's pulling somebody to the side and having a conversation with somebody, know that it does impact us all. And again, it's imperative. It's going to require us all.
Absolutely. And I thank you for that, Antoine. Thank you for joining me here. Stories from
Thanks
the
for
Other
having me.
Side. We are just pleased to know, to be able to share from some of our clients, our friends, our families, the FailSafe family. Thank you for joining us here at Stories from the Other Side. And just like you just heard from Antoine, 94% are coming home. It is imperative that we work together as a community to ensure that these guys and gals have the right resources so that when they reenter back into our communities, that they're successful, that they're productive, that they have what they need. And not only the returning citizens, but also the families. The families are greatly impacted as well. And so we have to make sure that we are providing resources also to our family members. So again, I want to thank Antoine Carey from Faded & Company Barbershop, Faded & Company Academy, Faded Foundation for joining me here today. And oh, by the way, to our viewers, I want to make sure you go and check out our website at www.FailSafe-ERA.org. We have a lot of great events and activities coming up. Second Chance Month, we have on April 4th our PGI, that is Preventing Generations of Incarceration conference on April 4th, and then later that evening is our Second Chance Gala. And at our Second Chance Gala, you will have an opportunity to not only hear from our keynote speaker, who is also a former narcotics detective and returning citizen. I will not tell his story. You will only know his story if you attend the gala. So get your tickets and join us. Then also we will be inducting 6 other returning citizens into our Hall of Change. You want to hear their stories as well. And I mean, it is going to be, like you guys said, I won't say it. I think it's fire or something. So I need to just stay in my lane, right? It's going to be good. It's going to be great. And then on the 12th of April, we have our Right Road Resource Fair. So for all of our returning citizens who's listening in, we have a resource fair. We will have a speaker that will be talking about the new expungement laws, and we will have our entrepreneurship boot camp and employment workshop. You don't want to miss it. We have a lot going on in April, so stay tuned. I also want to give a shout out to Blue Stallion to say thank you all for this great partnership, for allowing us to host our podcast. Thank you all. Join us the next time on Stories from the Other Side. Bye.